So as you've probably heard, we've just had a new type of ranked leaderboard for the bosses, and this week was least cash, so we want to spend as little money as possible to beat the boss. Last week was the introduction to this new type of boss event, but the event was removed prematurely due to some really big bugs. Now we are on update 37.3 and some of them has been fixed, and they decided to basically relaunch the same event but on a different map. I believe the last one was also just a standard Bloonarius with no restrictions. Last time was on Cabin, and now we're on Frozen Over. The gameplay you're watching I think was my second attempt at the normal difficulty boss, but I did a lot more attempts after this one, which I will talk a bit about later in the video. But first I would like to discuss the new types of boss events that we're going to be seeing and some positives and negatives about them. First of all, let's talk about the elite version of the boss. If you've looked at the leaderboards, you may have seen that for both solo and co-op, the top scores have spent as much as 10 hours to complete their runs, which is just insane. This is because they are creating a regrow farm to farm pops to be able to create paragons with high degrees despite not having a lot of sacrifices and thus spending less cash. While this is a smart and cool trick that I've used in, for example, this old video I did on Cornfield, a lot of people dislike the idea of this being a thing in a boss event for a few different reasons. First of all, it's not fun to need to regrow farm for 8 hours just to compete for a top score. It's simply too much time needed for one single run. Compare this to the normal version of the boss where all the top runs were done in about 1 hour, allowing players many attempts to reach the top ranks by just dedicating one evening to the event. The second problem is that regrow farming can cause quite some lag. I've heard that a lot of mobile players can't even finish the regrow farm because their game crashes before they have enough pops. A lot of players do play on mobile, so having a big part of the player base be unable to participate competitively in the event is of course a big no-no. But personally, I expect that this will not be a problem in the next least cash event, because we will probably see them banning the downdraft heli and the top path druid so that you can't regrow farm. This was only the first sort of test run of this new type of boss event, if you exclude the one that got cancelled, so because they had the standard boss with no modifiers and no tower bans, that should make all the potential problems with this new type of boss event apparent so that they can be fixed for future runs. And now if we move on to the normal boss, we do not have the same problem, simply because this boss can be taken down without needing any farming and certainly without any paragons, so there's no incentive to spend time creating a regrow farm. The main complaint I've heard here is the amount of monkey money needed to compete. Comparing the normal ranked speedrun events to least cash, you will spend a lot more monkey money on average, since you really need to cut things as close as you can when spending as little money as possible. The goal is to beat the boss using as little cash as possible, so naturally you will end up losing a lot of times. Restarting from the last checkpoint costs you 600 monkey money, and restarting from the last round costs you 1200 monkey money. As I've mentioned before, I've not done a lot of bossing, so I'm not a boss expert in general, but I would assume that you don't spend nearly as much monkey money on a speedrun event, since most often you only restart if you want to go back to the last checkpoint and not because you accidentally lose. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I did a lot of attempts after this one you're watching right now, because I tried to rank first, so I lost about 25,000 monkey money on this event, and that's even though I would have liked to play even more than I did, and of course I did my best to back out of the game if I thought I was going to lose, so I wouldn't have to spend as much monkey money as I otherwise would have. By the way, that's something you don't have the luxury of being able to do in co-op, so that would be even more expensive. The run you're watching now is from when there was still 3 days remaining on the event, and I ranked 8th place with 103k spent, which was rank 5 if you were to remove the cheaters. But of course that was quite early in the event. I think the event ended with a best score of around 93k. I did a few attempts at getting a score around and below 93k, and I got really close sometimes, but I did not manage to get it. But oh boy was it fun to try. A better spot for the Avatar of Wrath was right here, that I used in later runs, and was also the strat that was used in the top runs on the leaderboard. I sat down so many hours with this event. I thought it was really fun to just sit there and think by myself what I could possibly shave off my setup or new spots to put the druids in and still manage to beat the boss. I think that this new type of ranked leaderboard can be a lot of fun, as we the players and Ninja Kiwi learns more on what to ban to make sure no issues like regrow farming happens and to allow for new fun strats. Even though I have not done a lot of ranked bossing, I think that the idea of adding new variations on it is a fantastic idea, and as I've said before, you will start to see more boss content on this channel, as it's something that is really fun both for competitive ranked play as well as custom challenges. I would very much like to hear from all of you down in the comments what you thought about this boss event if you played it, and also what you hope to see in future least cash events. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video, leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.